He awoke the next morning, late. Recalling the impressions of the previous day, he remembered, first of all, that he was to be presented that day to the Emperor Franz. He remembered the Minister of War, the officiously polite Flugel adjutant, Bilibin, and the conversation of the evening before. Putting on his full dress uniform, which he had not worn for a long time, to go to court, he went down to Bilibin's study, with his hand bandaged, but fresh, full of spirits, and handsome. 4 young gentlemen connected with the diplomatic corps were gathered in the study. Bolkonsky was already acquainted with Prince Ippolit Kuragin, one of the secretaries of the legation. Bilibin introduced him to the others. The gentlemen at Bilibin's were gay, rich young men of fashion, who formed, both in Vienna and here in Brünn, an exclusive circle, which Bilibin, the leader of it, called ours, les notes. This coterie, composed almost exclusively of diplomats, were occupied with the doings of society, their relations to certain women, and their duties as secretaries, so that the interests of war and diplomacy were a sealed book to them. The gentlemen apparently took Prince Andrei and adopted him as one of themselves, an honor which they did not confer upon everyone. From politeness, and as a topic for beginning conversation, they asked him a few questions about the army and the battle, and then conversation quickly drifted into inconsequential but jovial sallies of wit and gossip. "But this is specially good," said one, relating the misfortunes of a colleague. "Especially good when the Chancellor himself told him to his face that his transfer to London was a promotion, and that he was to so regard it. Can you imagine his looks at hearing that? But what is worse than all, gentlemen, I must expose Kuragin. A man is in trouble, and this Don Juan, this terrible man, must needs take advantage of it." Prince Ippolit was stretched out in a Voltaire chair, with his legs thrown over the arm. He laughed. "Parlez-moi de ça. Tell me about it," he said. "Oh, you Don Juan." "Oh, you snake," said various voices. "You don't know, Bolkonsky," said Bilibin, turning to Prince Andrei, "that all the atrocities committed by the French army, I almost said the Russian army, are nothing in comparison with what this man has been doing among the ladies." "La femme est la compagne de l'homme." "Woman is man's helpmeet," said Prince Ippolit, sententiously, and he began to stare through his lorgnette at his elevated feet. Bilibin and "our fellows" roared, as they looked at Prince Ippolit. Prince Andrei saw that this young man of whom, it must be confessed, he had almost been jealous was the butt for this circle. "I must give you a little sport with Kuragin," whispered Bilibin to Bolkonsky. "It's rich to hear him talk about politics. You must see what an important air he assumes." He took a seat near Ippolit, and wrinkling his brows portentously, began to draw him into conversation on political affairs. Prince Andrei and the others gathered around the two. "The cabinet cannot express any thought of alliance," began Ippolit, letting his eyes wander significantly from one to the other, "without expressing, as in its last note, vous comprenez, vous comprenez. And then if His Majesty the Emperor does not go back on his principles, our alliance—" "Attendez. I have not finished," said he to Prince Andrei, seizing him by the arm. "I suppose that intervention will be stronger than non-intervention, and—" He was silent for a moment. "The non-receipt of our dispatch of the 28th of November cannot be charged as intentional. That will be the end of it." And he let go of Bolkonsky's arm, signifying that now he was entirely done. "Demosthenes, I recognize thee by the pebble which thou hast concealed in this golden mouth," said Bilibin, his cap of hair moving on his head with satisfaction. All laughed. Ippolit laughed louder than the rest. He was evidently not at his ease and could not get his breath. but he was unable to refrain from the forced laugh that distorted his usually impassive face. "Now then, gentlemen," said Bilibin, "Bolkonsky is a guest at my house here in Brünn, and I am anxious to treat him well and give him a taste of all our pleasures here so far as possible. If we were in Vienna, this would be easy, but here, in this beastly Moravian hole, ce vilain trou moras, it will be harder, and I beg you all to lend me your aid. Il faut lui faire les honneurs de Brünn. You undertake the theatres. I will introduce him to society. You, Hippolyte, of course, the ladies." "I must show him Amélie. She's a beauty," said one of the circle, kissing the ends of his fingers. "All in all, this bloodthirsty soldier," said Bilibin, "must be brought to more humane views." "It is doubtful if I can profit by your hospitality, gentlemen, for it is now time for me to go out," said Bolkonsky, looking at his watch. "Where?" "To the Emperor." "Oh, oh, oh. Well, au revoir, Bolkonsky. Goodbye, Prince. Come back to dinner with us as early as you can," shouted several voices. "We will look for you." "Try to say as much as you can in praise of the commissariat and the roads when you speak to the Emperor," said Bilibin, as he accompanied Bolkonsky into the entry. "I wish I could say flattering things, but I cannot," said Bolkonsky with a smile. "Well, then, do just as much of the talking as you can. His passion is for audiences, but he does not like to talk, and he does not know how, as you will see for yourself." End of chapter 11.